1957 Cessna 182 that Mindy and Kevin just bought.
Yes, thank you for coming out here.
Yeah, I saw it on Instagram and I was like, I want something to do with this plane, but I don't want to polish the whole plane. So
Understandable.
yeah, so luckily you really want to learn how to do this.
I do. I need to know how to do this. I need to know how to take care of my airplane.
Exactly. And it has a lot to take care of. So the paint was really old. The black appears to be original 1950s paint, and it was really, really thin. Then the teal was recently repainted, so that was easy to take care of. So yesterday we polished and coated the paint. We got Mindy to polish all of the teal and kind of get a feel for how different polishers work. Then we ceramic coated it so it's protected. Today we're going to make a huge mess. We're going to polish the aluminum, so we don't want that aluminum to stain the paint. So for polishing aluminum, if you have a plane like this and you want to get after it as well, you don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money on tools. I have two different kinds of tools that I like to use. So one is a dual action. So as I pull it, you see how it can kind of free spin like this, but when you apply power, it makes a random orbit, right? This is a flex cordless. It has a 15 millimeter random orbit, which means this offset is 15 millimeters. That's a good healthy amount. The other kind of tool is a rotary. A rotary just goes in a circle. Rotaries are more effective at putting power into the paint. However, they're a little bit more risky to use, and we'll talk about some of the concerns with that. This is a very safe tool, and it can actually still put quite a bit of power down, but for really heavy oxidation, we would use something like a rotary first, then use this. Now, if you don't want to spend thousands of dollars on tools, there is Harbor Freight, and Harbor Freight, I got nothing against them. They make great products actually. So this is their Harbor Freight 20 millimeter Bauer dual action polisher. So this has a even bigger throw. You see how it offsets quite a bit. So this actually puts out more power than this tool, and it's still dual action, so it's pretty safe to use. This is what I would recommend you buy. So go to Harbor Freight, buy the 20 millimeter dual action orbital. It does a lot of work, great results. Now, we also have pads we need to talk about. This is the Rupes Blue Foam Wool Pad. This is a different wool pad. As you can see, these are, it's a fibrous material and it can hold on to a lot of polish and it's more abrasive. There's also foam pads, which are softer, and these we would use for finishing versus cutting. We can vary how much action we're putting into the surface by pad, by tool, and by products, which we'll talk about that later. So let's take a look and see what these tools do actually to the surface. We come up here and we kind of take an inventory of the aircraft. You can see it's generally okay, and to the untrained eye, they would call this a polished surface. Now, if we look closely, and we have a single light source in the back, so we got some halogen lights, you see how there's just like lines radiating off that light source? Those are called holograms, and holograms are a byproduct of using a rotary polisher. Holograms are not great, especially if you have a low sunset, the sun's hitting your plane right on, you're going to see all of these holograms and it's going to interrupt the flow of that surface. If we move over here, we've been doing some test spots up here. So if you pan across, you'll see up there we have holograms, up here we don't. If you look really closely up here, we have what's called micromarring. Micromarring is a product of the dual action polisher. So the dual action polisher doing this deal, instead of making nice concentric scratches, it puts in millions of really small kind of random direction scratches. And because they're so random, they don't catch the light quite the same way. So I would consider this a much more favorable finish than that. And the reality is that you can't get aluminum perfect. Like there's just no way. If you went from 90 to 95%, no one will know a difference. In fact, that's what we did here. This is a rough finish, this is a fine finish. And if we didn't have halogen lights on it, and I didn't tell you, you'd have no idea that this is a more perfect surface. So big part of aluminum is really just doing kind of mind control, right? And getting into the mindset I'm gonna get this as good as I care, and there's always gonna be room for improvement, but we don't need to do it all today. So we're gonna find the sweet spot, make this plane look really good, really reflective. We're gonna get rid of a lot of clarity issues, a lot of distracting surface issues, and it's gonna look great. So let's get to it. So we went over polishing tools. Correlation, causation, I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but anytime I've had a good polishing experience on aluminum, I've had a mustache. So
Apparently, to be a good polisher, you have to have a mustache, and he was so kind. And I trust him, so let's do this thing.
that's a great mustache. All right, so we're gonna start with the dual action polisher, Rupes Blue Wool Pad, which is quite aggressive, and we're gonna use some C-grade compound. Let's define the section we're gonna work on.
So we'll work probably midway through this at first, just a small section to get started.
Okay, I like that.
So first I'm gonna tap it in, and then start on my slow speed and just kind of spread it first. Then I'm gonna amp up the speed a bit and start working it in more slowly.
So let's see what you did. So we went from holograms and general dullness to being able to see a mustache on your face. Now we do have micromarring, right? Like that's there, and we can address that with a later step. But even, you know, just looking at this still looks really, really good. So I'd be okay with flying a plane that looked like that. You know, I wouldn't fly to an aluminum detailer's convention, but I would definitely fly that. So let's keep doing that all over this way, and I'll start on the front and we'll go from there. So the after lunch update, we've put, I'm not even sure what time it is. How many hours have we put into this so far?
4-ish?
4?
4.5.
Okay. So 8 mustache hours, even though she took her mustache off. We got the whole left side initially cut. So I want to do this process such that if I have to leave, the plane looks good. It doesn't look unfinished. To me, holograms look unfinished, so we try and avoid using the rotary. Though there's some spots where you kind of have to use the rotary, but for the most part, we got everything in a pretty even, consistent, shiny finish. There's micro-marring, and the micro-marring is of varying qualities and quantities. However, to the untrained eye, not in halogen lights, it looks absolutely amazing. So let me turn the camera around and show you what we got. So we're going to continue on this side and continue with the cutting step. Hopefully in another 3 to 4 hours we'll have that done. We can do a little bit more refining and possibly start on the wings. Hopefully Kevin will be back by then too.
Since we were getting tired of polishing aluminum, I decided to share the life-changing magic of interior cleaning with some G-Technic Tri-Clean and a good scrubber brush. This is much more satisfying than cleaning aluminum.
And faster.
A lot faster.
And hurts less.
No pain, no gain.
Less curse words. Whoa. That's awesome. That looks brand new.
That's probably 50 years of grime.
Yep. Some elbow grease, literally.
Yeah, that's literally elbow grease right there.
So we're gonna press it in a little into our section. And then we're gonna go just low, right? I need lots more, because that just soaked it up.
Worth YouTube videos?
Hopefully this is
Did you watch my videos though?
Yeah. First,
I mean, I did.
lightly gonna see what I did. That was all on one with light, and you keep it flat as possible. And then I'm gonna go up, I like 4.5 or 5.
Okay.
And then you start working a lot slower, kind of like in a grid, and keeping it flat. And this button holds the trigger for you.
So it turns out Mindy is a pretty good aluminum polishing instructor as well. Kevin picked it right up and we were able to get 3 polishers going on this plane at the same time. Given the amount of ribbed aileron, elevator, and flaps on a Cessna, I also wanted to make sure that both Mindy and Kevin were way proficient using the rotary to polish in these tight spots here. Good morning. Day 2. We are so close to being done with the fuselage of the plane, not the whole plane. Let me give you the quick scoop here. So yesterday we did a aggressive compounding step all over the aluminum. What that accomplished was it removed the oxidation, holograms, stains, scratches, things like that. But since we used a dual action polisher and good technique, the plane pretty much looks like it could fly out and people would say, hey, that's a great looking plane. That was kind of the goal. Today, and actually I started this yesterday, today we're gonna refine the finish. So we're gonna take it just up a notch. You know, perfection is very difficult to get on aluminum, so not really something we're going for. We're striving for it always, right? But we gotta be realistic. This plane's old enough to collect Social Security, so let's be mindful of that. The game today, we are taking the micromarring from the compounding step. So we did aggressive compounding with a dual action polisher. We would expect to see some micromarring. And we're converting that to less visible micromarring using a dual action polisher and a finer pad and polish combination. Now, the game here is if you have micromarring that you're converting into micromarring, how do you know if that's your fine or your coarse scratches, right? And a lot of times what I like to do, takes a little bit more time, is to actually use an in-between rotary step. So we go over the surface with a rotary, we take those compounding micromarrings, and then we turn that into holograms. Holograms being very distinctly different. So we can now see, first we can make sure we've removed all the previous compounding hologram or micromars, and we can see them distinctly as holograms. So when we then do our finishing polish, we really just polish until the holograms are gone. If we do see micromarring, that means I polished it too aggressively and I reintroduce those scratches. If I still see holograms, I know that I wasn't aggressive enough, so I need to polish a little bit more to get that previous steps hologram out. Makes sense, right? So I'm gonna get to that, and after that we're gonna clean up the paint because we made a big mess of it. Mindy actually went around yesterday and got a lot of it cleaned up already, but I wanna just make sure that we didn't abrade away any coating in areas, so we may have to recoat some parts here and there. Plane's looking beautiful. We got a little bit more work, and this plane will look amazing. So I think we're done with the fuselage.
I think so too. It is nearly a perfect mirror now.
In parts,
Yeah.
in full disclosure, right? So we did the finishing polish. We just finished that and cleaned up a bit. I went back over some of the areas where I hit the paint and recoated it because the coating does get affected when you hit it with a polisher. But overall, how do you feel about it? How
feel
manageable was this?
Good about it. This first pass was difficult, learning the process, learning the tools and the process on how to go through each layer and everything. But now that it's done and we got a really good sweep on it, I'm feeling confident I can manage it to upkeep it.
Okay, so we did a pretty aggressive initial correction and then a nice finishing step to finish it out. On the wings, you got a lot of work left there. How do you feel about tackling that?
Good. Kevin's gonna have to definitely put some work in.
Yeah.
Me and you did almost all of this, so it's his turn.
Yep,
to
he started. We got to give him credit. He
Yes.
did a fair amount of work yesterday.
Yes.
After pushing tin all day, he came and pushed on this tin. So
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So we have wings to go, but I think we'll have them done in the next week or two, and then it's gonna be all done.
just cruise control to cool from there.
Yeah, I'm excited to get my few more knots.
Awesome. I don't think that's going to happen. Aviana does not promise speed, but we'll take the credit.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned something. I know Mindy learned a lot. I even learned something too. Every plane's different. So subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to follow Mindy on Instagram. It's Schmindy.
Yes.
We'll put a description
Yes,
link in
we'll
there.
tag it.
And she's working on some.
Gotta stop for the booty.
Yeah. So make sure to follow Mindy on Instagram. It's Schmindy, and I'll put a link in the description. And she's got some really cool ideas coming up for a YouTube channel too. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
See ya.